Okay, I just finished an amazing call with my Allana Pratt method coaches, and I can go like so friggin' deep, fast, straight, say the shit, laugh, cry, swear. Like it's just so fun to work with them. They've been so steeped in the Allana Pratt method processes. They're so good at feeling without getting defensive. And they're so ripe to be their best self. It's just delicious. Which reminds me of how deep and fast, God, that sounds so sexy, but really, I don't mean it like that. But anyways, with the incredible TJ Woodward on the podcast, because he gets it, he lives it, he friggin' teaches it. Like, I so appreciate all the different people I've interviewed over the years, but not everybody's as deep. Not everybody gets it. Everybody has a contribution for sure. But it was such a breath of fresh air to instantly realize that TJ friggin' lives this. He was sharing about how he like leads trainings with different practitioners, and he's like, you can put away your books, you can put away your pens. We're just gonna feel. And I'm like, I love this guy. So you're gonna love this podcast because this is the shit that works. This is really what it takes, and this is not for the faint of heart. And this is exactly where the world is going and where the world needs to go. Yeah, enjoy. Welcome to Intimate Conversations, Soul Medicine. Intimacy is an inside job. Hello, you delicious people. Welcome to another episode of Intimate Conversations, Season 11, Soul Medicine. And we're talking today about shame and how to move past these painful lies that we tell ourselves that sometimes lead us into addictive behaviors. And we have somebody who I already adore. I've been wanting to get on the show for a very long time, the amazing TJ Woodward. You can also find him at his site, TJ Woodward, as well. Let me tell you a bit about him, and we're going to get away to the races. So he is a revolutionary recovery expert, a best-selling author, inspirational speaker, educator, and addiction treatment specialist who has helped countless people through his simple yet powerful teachings. He is the creator of the Conscious Recovery Method, a groundbreaking and effective approach to viewing and treating addiction. And TJ is also the author of 3 best-selling books and their respective workbooks, Conscious Recovery, Conscious Being, and Conscious Creation. And so all the way from Marina Del Rey, where I'm going to call you next time I'm there, and maybe you'll join me paddleboarding. I'm really, really glad you're on the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here, and absolutely, let's go paddleboarding.
I love it. So good. So I'd love to hear your story. I am sure there's quite one for you to become like the leading guy in recovery. I bet you've gone through your own journey. So tell us a bit about how you got here.
Yeah, I have definitely gone through a few journeys that have led me to this moment. And the one that is kind of standing out for me to talk about really is why I created Conscious Recovery as both a book and a movement. And that is when I was roughly 2 years sober. I got sober in 1986. It's so crazy to imagine that, but it's true.
Wow, and congratulations.
Thank you. So sometime around 87, 88, I found myself suicidal. And the paradigm at that time and place was, don't worry about anything but not drinking. Your life is a miracle. No, go help someone else. Mm-hmm. And I hadn't addressed the underlying root causes. And I found myself feeling isolated and alone. And predominantly what I was experiencing was shame. The shame that I had been medicating with drugs and alcohol. It was like everything thawed out. And then that shame was coming to the surface and didn't really know what to do with it. And I met a woman who changed my life, and she took me on a pathway to discover a way out of that and a way toward a deeply fulfilling life. And so that's become my life's work.
Wow. Oh, I got to pry into that. Okay. So what was the shame about?
The shame was so multifaceted, but it was really some very core decisions that I made about myself at such a young age. And that's the thing in working with people. And what I've discovered in working with people in treatment for, 15 years and in recovery circles for almost 40 years now, which is hard to imagine, that people are carrying around these core false beliefs that we develop at such a tender young age. Mine was, I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy, and I'm not good enough. And those 3 beliefs were informing everything in my life, every decision I made, every relationship I chose to be in, every job I had.
Yeah.
And I just hadn't yet addressed it, or I wasn't even aware it was happening. I wasn't aware that those core false beliefs were running the show.
Wow. How did you, well, the symptoms of them, suicidal and loneliness, depression, all of this, and then, oh, the discovery of them, the shame. How did they reveal themselves? Was it this woman that you mentioned a moment ago? Did she help you find them, or did you start internally looking and asking, why am I feeling so suicidal? How did it happen?
I think it was her first to start with that created my ability to start looking. She created such a safe space for me. And when I say a safe space, you know, we hear safe space thrown around a lot. We hear holding space thrown around a lot. What
Yeah.
I mean by it was she was such an incredible presence, a non-judgmental presence, open, loving, that when I was with her, I felt something that was so powerful, and it gave me the ability to start to look within. So it was through meeting her that gave me the permission, if you will, to start examining what was underneath the surface, because it was buried very, very deeply at that time.
Wow. It sounds like you work with a lot of people. And so this idea of being like a space holder or the safe one, but it's really, I feel energetically, if we don't have banks of the river, the water floods, right? We get flooded.
Yes.
But if someone's there, and my personal fave that for me that works is they've got to be non-judgmental. They've got to be unconditionally loving. And that's why I love being an intimacy expert, because I can't give that to you, TJ, if I haven't given it to myself.
Yes,
Like,
I love it.
Yeah. So let's go deeper there.
Yeah, standing ovation. I would stand up, but you know, it might mess up our show here. But the standing ovation is because what you said at the end there to me is foundational. And that is, you know, what is required. This quote I like to use is Dolly Parton says, "It takes a lot of money to look this cheap." And the modified version of that is it takes a lot of work to simply be here and be present with you and for you without trying to fix, to manipulate, to change, to respond, to tell you what you need to do. And that is really what she did for me. And then the simplicity of that, you know, I didn't yet know it was going to take me 20 years of deep work to get to that place of being able to do that. But then again, I knew that she had done about 20 years of her own work at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. I, in the past year, so I've been at this for about 20 years as well, doing the work. And I've begun psychedelic somatic integration work to find one of those, level 4 traumas that I didn't know was running the show hypervigilantly the whole time. I wasn't even in my body. I thought I was, but I wasn't. And one of my practitioners, sometimes we do Zoom sessions, and what came out a couple of weeks ago was he's deepening. I can tell he's doing the work as I'm doing the work as well. Because I said I was on, I don't know what I was on, cannabis or something. Anyways, I was doing my session blindfolded, and I'm like, oh, I can go deeper. There's more of you. There's more space. I can, and like my wounds were speaking up or something, saying, oh, you're not going to judge this if I let this amount of crazy through. I can be this surrendered, and you're not going to leave. You're not going to fix. You're not going to guide me to a happy place. In fact, he just says, let's take me with you. Take me with you. I'm right there. And I could literally feel. And then when the session was done, he said, something's happening where it's like a figure 8. You go deeper, and me holding space allows me to grow in my depth. And then you resolve that. And then you're more light, power, love, whatever. And then it goes into him. Like, we are growing as a team together. What are your thoughts on that?
That's really it. That's the journey, and that's the dance. I spend the majority of my time now training clinicians who work in behavioral health, whether that's a counselor, a therapist, a clinician, a tech, helping people break the cycle of addiction. And you know, the paradigm that has been established, and it goes back really for decades, is it's been very directive. You know, let me tell you what you need to do. The old paradigm is like, sit down, shut up, your best thinking got you here, all the stuff we hear. I actually heard a counselor say to me, this was just last week, she said, we were literally trained. This is what they were trained. If the addict is talking, they're lying. Right. So that's the old paradigm, the label of the addict, the thought or the belief that their thinking isn't valid, right? And so now we're in this new
Oh,
paradigm, and it's paradoxical, right? The person has, each one of us has within ourselves the answers and the inner wisdom.
yep,
But
yep.
most of us can't do it alone. So when you find someone like who you're working with, who's willing to take that figure eight, if you will, of that depth, it really is something that it gets co-created, and it gets co-created through curiosity, not through thinking that I need to have the answers for the person I'm sitting with.
Totally. Okay, so you don't work with people, you work with the trainers of the people. Did I get that right?
Yeah, for the most part now. Yeah, I have a couple of clients I still see individually. My passion, other than doing shows like this, my other passion is facilitating trainings at behavioral health centers.
Wonderful. And so you're teaching them how to be, really.
Yes. Well, and what's interesting is what when I walk in, I will often say, for those of you who are holding your notebooks, for those of you who have your laptops out right now to take notes, I apologize. That's not what we're doing today. I am not here to teach you anything. We're here to be with each other and see what emerges. And some of them are like, oh, this is wonderful. And some are like, oh my gosh, what's about to happen? For the next 6 hours, we're going to explore what it actually means to be truly present. And I'm not here to teach, but to create a space for learning.
Oh, you're so cool, TJ. I love this.
Oh, thank you.
Tell us how you help them to, it's an embodiment. It's not a thought. It's
Right.
a beingness.
Right.
And in my experience, anything that triggers me on the outside is my work to integrate and process on the inside.
That's right.
And by the end of it all, just our energy, people can just look in our eyes and cry and surrender and transform. And we just fucking sit here. That's all.
That's right. Well, and that's it, right? So I'm always careful to say that we are a house with 4 rooms: physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual, and all of it has a place in helping someone.
Yeah.
The issue in our field, and when I say our field, I'm talking about the overarching behavioral health or addiction treatment space. Most of it is focused on the physical and intellectual, right? There's a lot about the thinking. There's a lot of, it's very cerebral in the, the brain science, and all of that is wonderful. And what I say is, in addition to that, what we're doing today is we're going to set that aside for a moment, and we're just going to see what emerges when we're really present with one another. And I do many different exercises with clinicians where they realize what you just said. When I'm truly present with you, these emotions come up that seem really surprising, and it can happen really quickly because we're holding a place of energy, right? And now you mentioned energy, I'm mentioning energy. For some people that might sound out there, but the truth is we're all communicating energetically all of the time. Even animals, right? Animals are very instinctively connected with energy. Many humans have been taught to abandon that part of ourselves. So my encouragement is that we get back into our energetic bodies and notice the effect that has.
Oh yeah. Okay. Keep going. So I'm all about, I was a dancer, and all of this work is now somatic. And as I go through this integration, I give it over to body, trust body. And I've overused this to try to be safe. My heart very open because I wasn't in my hips. I wasn't in my discernment, my knowing down there. I just had an open heart. That's all I could do. So I love this. So give us an example of someone who's dealing with shame, and they have enough awareness to go, oh yeah, I get that I don't feel good enough. I get that I don't feel safe. I feel I'm a loser, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And this is arising, and you're doing with this the clinicians or where have you. What's next? We want to be aware of it. Yeah.
We want to start working with where it originated, because the issue that I have with a lot of the modalities is we go right into our mind about it. So we hear people saying, change the narrative, change the thought, question the thought. Some even say like push up against the thought. Some would say opposite action, and all of that can be useful. The work that I do, and it sounds like you do, and many of us are doing, is in addition to all of that, let's really get down to the root of where this originated, because most of us, if not all of us, the ones that feel really deep are the ones that happen very early in life, and our brains weren't even developed. So in other words, when I was 5, I decided I was stupid, and that got concretized into my unconscious at a very, very deep level. And as an adult, I tried to act my way out of that. Let me
Yeah.
get good grades so I can prove that I'm not stupid. Let
Yeah.
me sound really smart so that I can prove that I'm not stupid. Let me try to change the thinking. Let me use affirmations. I did all this work in my 20s, and I
Yeah.
realized that the deeper work was to have a place that I can hold the 5-year-old and
Yes.
allow the 5-year-old to actually feel what was present. And instead of coming to the conclusion I'm stupid, actually process that feeling, right? And we often hear people talk about regulating emotions, and it's not about regulating them. It's about allowing ourselves to actually, okay, let me be clear. It can be about regulating them. In addition to that, it's
Yes.
really about feeling them and processing them. And that's really innate in the human experience, but most of us have had that taught out of us.
Totally. Totally. I think we can talk for 3 hours.
Yeah.
But I won't. But also,
Unless we
one of,
do.
unless we do. Okay. True. One of my, so I've developed 10 Allana Pratt method processes, just dabbling through everything I've learned for 20 years. And one of them is called Little You.
Mm,
And I remember the time when my son decided he was going to live with his dad. It had been 12 years of a custody battle. And he's like,
mm,
I know what I'm doing. And he was right. The custody battle ended, but I allowed him to live with dad. And I was very sad about this. And I went out to a cabin in the middle of nowhere to grieve and process all of this. And I had this long list of everything, all these things, I'm not enough, and maybe he'll never call me again, and maybe I'll die alone, like everything I was afraid of. And then I remember seeing in my mind's eye little Allana. There's this one, she was humiliated. This one, she was terrified. This one, she was ashamed, like all these little, and then I started imagining talking to her. And so this is the image, the words and the emotions and the body sensation that she's really in my arms. Even though he may never call us again, I love and accept you. Even though we may die alone, or everyone opts out of, at the time it was Facebook was more whatever, because they found out that I'm a hot mess behind the scenes. I love and accept you. And something happened, TJ, after doing that practice, where I had like a complete direct experience.
yeah.
No gravity, oneness with all. Like I brought home the little Allanas into oneness, the embodiment of it. It didn't make the circumstances change. It changed who I was about the circumstances.
Yes. And what you just said is vitally important, because we actually can change the past. And let me say what I mean by that. We don't change the circumstances of the past. We change the conclusion that we came to because of the circumstances. And that's actually the only thing alive, right? The memory is alive in my mind. It's alive in my body. Bessel van der Kolk says that trauma doesn't show up as a memory. It shows up as a reaction. Right. So there's a reactivity in my mind to everything that's happening in the world, and it's historical. It's something that it goes back to a very, very tender age. And when we go back and do that inner child work, and a lot of times, even with inner child work, that's why I'm so grateful to hear what you said. A lot of times the instruction with the inner child work is to tell the child they're going to be okay.
Yeah,
Or
fix them.
right. They're still fixing the inner child. And it's like, no, we hold and we love and we appreciate and we say you're whole and perfect just the way you are. And the number one thing we can say is it's okay to feel what you're feeling. You're safe now and I'm here for you. So when I do the inner child work, those are the 3 phrases. It's okay to feel that way. I'm here for you. And you're safe now, or it's safe to feel that. And as we actually feel that, we can go back, because we can actually teletransport in a way, because again, we go back to the memory from a visceral body experience.
Yeah.
When we go back to that memory, and we can actually change the conclusion, not through talking our little child out of it, but by simply being present with ourselves. And then we can say, oh my gosh, I am worthy. I am lovable. And that change actually, in a way, it almost erases the past. And that, if that sounds out there for people, from a more concrete way, it just means that we've come to a different conclusion from that tender young age, and then something else gets embedded in us. Our original perfection comes through, and we're no longer dictated by these false beliefs that we've been carrying around.
Yeah. Here, fist pump, totally agree. I believe I see like it's sort of like energy stuck on a timeline that's mine. It's me. And when I do this work, it's in my body and it's one, and it's communion or alignment or whatever you want to say. Like it feels whole inside. I like what you said. What are those 3 lines again? Can you say them again?
Yeah. First, what we do is we get in touch with a memory, right? And then we ask our child self, what are you feeling? So we start with
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
we or they or our young child names the feeling. And then we say, it's okay to feel that way.
Yeah.
It's safe to feel that way. And I'm here for you. And
This is,
I usually do it 3 times, because sometimes the child is like, no, you're not here for me. You've
yeah,
been doing
you've still been an
cocaine, you've been
asshole
running
to me.
around, you've been
Yeah.
shopping, you've been, all the things. And so
Yeah.
it's like learning to trust that I can be there for myself is a big part of the process.
This is so good, TJ, because it's not a one and done.
It's
And
not.
it's literally a relationship that you've has been in, like, separation or criticism or abandonment or forsaken. And the little you is like, I don't think so.
Right.
I need to, are you going to do this tomorrow? Are you going
Yeah.
to do this next week? Are you still here for me? Right? Like, build trust, build the right to be vulnerable with one another, just like in a healthy relationship in our life. I had this one other piece, which I don't know what you think about this, but in my theatrical mind, I imagine I'm going inside my heart, and there she is in the back corner chamber. And I say, look, I'm throwing out the key. I'm here. You can take eternity. I'm not going anywhere. And I'm not going to change you. You can be sad for eternity. And I love you, and I'm not leaving.
Yeah.
And there's something about that eternity piece. So you can change, so we can go get the guy, go get the money, go get the whatever.
Right.
There's no agenda. Like, there's zero strategy. And I feel when I do that, my body go, oh, really? You love me even like this?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, and that's the work. If we call it work, that's for our inner child, but also our adult and all parts of ourselves. We integrate all parts by welcoming what is. And, I can't tell you how many times I hear someone say, and maybe you've said it, I'm sure I've said it, and I'm sure you've heard people say it, if I feel this, it's going to envelop me, it's going to swallow me, I'm going to get stuck there. But the truth is the opposite. As I resist it and try to change it, that's what keeps it stuck, right? So it's very, very counterintuitive for people who have been deeply programmed. I remember when I was early in my relationship, my now husband said, I woke up one day and I just said, gosh, I woke up with so much sadness. And very well-meaning, he tried to offer ways for me to not feel sad.
Yes.
Now, that's just a normal way that our culture reacts to it. And I heard myself saying, oh no, I'm okay with being sad. I've come to embrace it. And I remember him looking a little confused, but then we have come to understand, and I certainly have come to understand in my own journey, that the more I allow myself to feel what's present, we actually do move through it. But the catch is, we're not feeling it so that we can move through it, right? We're feeling it so that we can be present. And then, oh, lo and behold, I'm not stuck there anymore.
Oh my God, I so get it. We're so on the same page. I love it. And I love your sweet husband, who's just wanting to, like, love you.
Exactly.
And to be the way we can be with ourselves in allowance and spaciousness and presence, and then be that with our partner. Like, that's the...
Well, yeah, and we've been programmed to do it, right? I mean, I find myself very curious. Like, let's use an example, like when someone dies. It's such a great example because it happens every day, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And what do we usually say? I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Right. So we immediately name it as a loss, which it is for some people and most people, but we say, I'm sorry, because we're wanting to somehow console them. I worked with someone, and she was the caretaker of her mother for a decade while she was sick. Her mother was very angry. They had a very contentious life together. When she finally died, there was so much relief. She felt so at peace. She felt so at peace for her and so at peace for herself. And she was elated. And she walked out into the world, and everyone kept saying, oh, you must be so sad. I'm so sorry. And she's like, I felt insane because that's not what I was feeling. So that is such a great example of how we do it every day. We try to fix or manipulate or help someone. But the truth is, what we really require is simply presence, like to be present with someone. And God forbid that we ask them, how are you today? Right? Instead of, let me offer you some advice.
Oh my God. Either of those don't work. Yes.
Right.
Go back, if you would, so we've been speaking of this ability to be present, feel. create a safe space for this. And then through complete grace, allowance, it shifts. It shifts of its own accord, right? Any resistance, any manipulation makes it worse. Go to that when I think you first said with your story there, after the sobriety, there was suicidal.
Yeah.
Well, allowing suicidal, I'll share a little bit if it makes sense later, but as I've been going through all of this disassociation, coming back into the body, I thought, oh, we're just going to feel some anger, some fear. Oh no, it's like, it's just, I've never had this darkness of suicidal, but the process that I practiced for 20 years and the process that I'm being facilitated in, I'm not alone. And as I allow this, I've never had darkness like this ever in 53 years.
Yeah.
And then it goes to this very short period of like level 2, where it's maybe 60, 90 seconds and it's big. It's either panic or rage or something really, and then it starts to calm down. And then I'm literally in my body, integrated in wholeness.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, that's some scary shit.
Those 60 seconds are terrifying. And I look at it through what is innate, right? If you look at a young child, toddler age, they innately feel their feelings, and they feel them big feelings. And they express them in a big way. And if we let them, we hold them gently and allow them to feel, they move through it and they go back to their natural state. Now, I say their natural state is joy, and someone kind of did a little dragging of me on TikTok and said, this guy's crazy. If you know any kids, their natural state's not joy. I say, okay, that's one point of view. My point of view, which is I love what Byron Katie says. She says, this is true for me. It might not be for you.
That's right.
But for me, what's true is that we have this natural state that is joy. And then we have something that disrupts that. And as we feel it, a young child will just rage. And then they'll go back to the joy, right? Until we start teaching them things like, you shouldn't be angry. Don't do that. Here's a piece of candy. Go to your room. In the worst case, they might get hit. I mean, there are, so many things in life that teach us to not feel. I worked with a client, and this one is so striking to me. I worked with a client years ago, and when he was young, I think maybe 10 years old, his father died, and he had his mother and his 2 sisters. And he said, not one, not 2, but multiple people at the funeral said, "You're the man of the family now, be strong." And this is a 10-year-old, right? Not, how are you doing? Your dad just died, but be strong. I mean, the layers are so crazy, like, be strong for these women who apparently can't be strong for themselves. Let's start with that. But this idea that strength is, closed down.
Right.
That was so profound to me.
Oh, sweet man. Wow.
Yeah.
What does Byron Katie say? This is true for me. It might not be true for you.
This is true for me. It might not be for you.
Not true for you. But I agree with the joy statement.
Yes.
Because joy is different than happiness, depression. Happiness, depression.
Of course.
Joy can be very quiet.
Yes.
But it's sustainable, not based on external circumstances. It's this internal and essence. So I'm in total agreement with that. How do you help, or the clinicians help the patients or your clients when going through the recovery process, going through the healing shame process does take them through suicidal ideations? How do your processes help them with that darkness?
Well, I think, when we talk about suicide, we have to be very careful the way we talk about it, right? Because clinicians are trained that they're responsible to keep this person alive. So we have the checklist that we go through. Is someone really suicidal? We do what we can to help them. But I think spiritually, there's a place where I want to meet someone where they're at. Yeah. And, this is definitely true for me. It might not be for someone else. Someone can choose suicide. That is a choice that they have available to them. Yeah. That's not one that I hope one will take. But if I am saying, oh my gosh, the worst thing, you can't do this, then I'm fighting it instead of like being really curious. I wonder what's really happening here. Because if someone gets to that point, there's something there that is requiring attention. And if all I'm doing is trying to keep someone from doing that, instead of like, oh, let's talk about that. Right. And how many times have I heard a client say, everyone, just for the record, I'm not going to do this, right? Because they're afraid to say it. And so people are walking around not saying, I'm feeling a little suicidal today, or I don't know if I want to be on the planet anymore. And because we've made it such a difficult thing to talk about, then it gets suppressed, right? So it's a tricky conversation, but I start by doing what we've already talked about, and that is holding space for that, normalizing that. Many people have felt that, if not most people, at least at one point. Now let's talk about what's going on.
Yeah. Oh, I really, really like that. I really, really like that. What can people expect? I want to move into your 3 best-selling books and workbooks. I always love a good workbook too. Conscious Recovery, Conscious Being, and Conscious Creation. Tell us more when we're helping people move through shame into inner little you love and joy and self-expression.
Yeah, let's talk about Conscious Recovery first. That was my second book, but that's a book where I directly identify shame as one of the root causes of addictive behavior.
Okay.
And of course, we know, the difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is, I believe I've done something wrong. Shame is, I feel like I am wrong. And therefore, we work with it very differently. So when we get to shame and start to address shame, shame gets healed through transparency, authenticity, and vulnerability. Now, these are words we hear a lot about. So what do they actually mean? We've already been talking about it, right? We find someone or a group of someone's, and ultimately really the someone is ourselves, to actually hold a space where we can be vulnerable, and not like, I'm going to tell you what I think. More like, let me share with you from an authentic place what is present for me. Shame then thaws out by being seen. Right. Shine the light of awareness on shame. Shame lives in the shadow. I feel broken, but I'm never going to let you know that. Right. And so bringing it into the light is how it gets healed.
I so love this. I so love this. So if somebody's doing these, gets the book and it's doing the work, and they don't have a you, a me, or these different groups, is it like a self journey, or do you have online groups that people join? Or because going it alone is hard, in my opinion, for shame to be dissolved. It's like literally looking in another's eyes, who literally, for realsies, is not judging you when you just said, I feel like I don't deserve to be here.
Right.
And they say, I see you.
The healing for me has always come in community. I'm also very extroverted, so it could be that. And then I think about Mary Helen, who's the woman who really saved my life. Like, she was definitely not extroverted. Her work was all one-on-one. She sat with people for hours as they explored and unthawed all of this shame. So I agree with you that finding a person or a group of people, depending on your temperament, to do this work is really important. Conscious recovery and conscious creation, for that matter, address the core false beliefs and address looking at how we can actually go back and reparent. Where did this originate? How does it feel when I believe it? So we have a lot of exercises, and I agree with you completely. I do know there is a group of women who are doing book studies on my 3 books in Nevada on Zoom up in the Bay Area in California. So I think that's open to all women. That's one group that's coming up. But yes, finding a safe place in community is so important.
Beautiful. Well, maybe there's we'll put a link in the show notes to how to reach that online group, if that works. I'd like to complete by following around your own personal journey again, with your relationship, the deepening of presence, intimacy, like what's possible in relationship when we do this work.
Well, I think the greatest freedom that we can ever experience is freedom from the reactive impulse. And that reactive impulse, going back to what Bessel said, that's the trauma showing up as a reaction, not as a memory. So it's not so much about, we talked about this, not what happened, but what I decided about what happened that creates the reality. So freedom from the reactive impulse is the number one thing, right? Once I integrate parts of me, what we formerly called trigger, I don't use that word, I use the word activate, right? Something got activated in real time when someone says or does something, and I notice the internal reaction or response, I can be present with that and go through that process if it's okay to feel that way It's safe for me to feel, and I'm here for myself.
Mm.
Imagine a world where we're on social media, we read something, we have the reactive impulse, and we all pause and care
Yes.
for ourselves.
Yes.
Right? Because we're being told we live in a polarized country, and I don't believe it. I think we have been conditioned to have polarized thinking. My opinion is the right one. That makes you wrong. I'm going to find a coalition of people to agree with me. We call that a religion or a political party. And then we build a coalition to be against someone else. And I know that's overly simplified, but that's the issue, right? And so I'm not looking for a group of like-minded people. I'm looking for a group of people dedicated to being in the process of living beyond thought, living beyond opinion.
Yeah, which requires being in here.
It
Being in
sure
our body.
does. Deeply in our bodies, as you mentioned it. I love that you're a dancer, because, you know, dancers really do learn how to embody.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And even the dance journey, come to think of it, was started in my head. Do it right. Am I the best one in the room? Am I getting my teacher's approval?
The technique.
Yeah, technique. Is my body thin enough? Like, that's how I started. And it was a lot of self-hatred, to be really honest. I was a showgirl in Japan, and it was all about, you know, competition and all the rest of it. And then I began to do more Gabriel Roth 5 rhythms and more ecstatic dance. And then I did pole dancing, and now I just roll around in the living room. But
perfect.
And I literally once a week with my teacher on Zoom, and I just lie on the ground and I just give over. I go, okay, buddy, what's going on? And she facilitates, she doesn't direct. And whatever comes out, and she'll encourage the feeling of things and letting the body do what it wants to do. And sometimes I don't look sexy. I look like an idiot, but I feel great because I'm letting it through my body. So yeah, we're on the same page.
Yeah. And I mean, I go back to the little kid, right? Little kids they're not embarrassed. And so we teach them something's embarrassing. And I remember a profound experience. I used to have a Vespa in San Francisco. I loved it. And I was on the corner on my Vespa, and I look over, and there was this young child, probably 2 years old, on a parent's shoulders. Yeah. And our eyes met, not the parent, but the child. Our eyes met, and we stayed connected all the way as they walked across the light, all the way down the sidewalk until it was time for me to go. And I remember how profound it was, because that child innately wanted to connect. And because I had done enough work, it was okay for me to connect in that way. Yeah. And then I realized, wow, that's our natural state. Our natural state is to be just silly and, you know, open. And that includes, by the way, being angry. I love that you said, you know, joy is not being happy all the time. Joy is a state of consciousness that allows all the other experiences to come and move, come and go and move through us, not get stuck somewhere.
Yeah, you're so wise. I love talking to you.
Thank you.
I feel quite alone sometimes with my points of view, and I sometimes go like, am I just crazy? But I do believe as we're ascending, 3D, right, wrong, or totally asleep, right? 4 does get polarizing, because we're starting to wake up that we actually have an opinion. But then to dissolve the superior inferior world all the way into 5D, where it's actually a win-win-win for all. Right. And we've learned to integrate our emotions, and we have deeper awarenesses of feelings, and we can see things where it's a win-win-win. Everybody gets to win here.
And we find a place of deep compassion for people around us, not because of their opinions, right? Because, you know, I can debate just about anything and tuck myself into any opinion if I tuck myself into it long enough. So we're talking about moving beyond that. Doesn't mean I no longer have thoughts or opinions, but it means that that's not, my identity is not there. My identity is not in what I believe, it's who I am being. And that shift alone creates a very different relationship, not only with my own thoughts and opinions, but with others as well. And then I'm in a very different paradigm.
Oh God, this is so good. Yes. And so to go from the identity into the beingness, this is so gorgeous. And then there's no attachment. You get to be, I get to be, we get to agree to disagree, and I can keep my heart open and be with you.
And then what's amazing about that is that's where true change can come, right? Because we've been fighting for rights and fighting for so long, and we have some success with that in some ways. So I'm not saying it doesn't have a role, but we move to this place where we're standing for something instead of against something. And that's where real change starts to happen. That's where we can connect. I mean, I'm about to do a family trip with people next 2 weeks from now that are on all different points of a spectrum, politically, religiously, or lack of. And it's exciting for me because I get to just be present with someone and notice if I have any place that's stuck on, oh, they're wrong about that. And I'm, just to witness that instead of being in the midst of that is really powerful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm really glad you're on this planet. You're doing amazing work. You're the embodiment of it. Thank you for this incredible conversation. So I want people to go to your site, which is TJ Woodward. That'll be in the show notes as well. I say get all the 3 books, but definitely we've been talking about conscious recovery, a fresh perspective on addiction. We've been talking about being in our bodies and being kind and patient and allowing and safe with all aspects of ourselves, so we can then give that to one another. How would you like to complete from your beautiful heart to all of ours?
I would like to complete by saying, if no one has told you today, you are a whole and perfect spiritual being. You came into the world as light, and that is still the truth of who and what you are.
And so it is. Yeah. Thank you so much, TJ. And so as we complete, viewers and listeners, I don't know how many mic drops you've counted. I lost count. So there's got to be something that has really touched you, moved you, maybe tears, maybe igniting some anger, whatever it is. It's perfect. Take 5 minutes after this interview, go for a walk, be with yourself, get out your journal, and take an action based on this conversation, igniting something within you. Then those little actions once a day, it's a completely new reality, a completely new life. So thank you so much for spending time with us on Intimate Conversations. Thank you, TJ, so much. You are amazing. And it's my honor to each week love the shit out of all of you. See you next week on Intimate Conversations. Get out there and make love to life.
Okay, look at all the dogs. Hi. And you're the new puppy. Yeah, you wanted my purse, huh? You guys are so gorgeous. I love you. Okay, I'm sitting down. Oh my God, they're so adorable. Hi. I love you. I do. Woof, look at you. I love how goofy that puppies are. They're just so, like they're drunk or something. I really hope you enjoyed that episode. Okay, here's my new friend. Hi. That episode with TJ, I think one of my favorite parts was when he spoke of being with his husband and being sad, and his husband, oh, you're just very sweet. Oh, he wanted to fix it, because who wants to see someone we love in pain, right? And that over time they've learned how to just be, tell me more. And yes, you're so sweet. You're so sweet. And so I'm going to go into my acupuncture appointment now. Please follow TJ. Please get the book that we mentioned. He knows what he's talking about. Yeah, here's this one. Oh, I love this one. Yeah. He knows what he's talking about. He gets that we need to be in our bodies, and he's walking the talk. He lives it in his life. So, love you, TJ. Thanks for being on the show. Love all of you. And any way I can support you in doing that inner work to drop into your body so that you can speak with kindness to the ones you love and invite the kind of support that you really desire, it would be my pleasure. All right, I love you. Okay, yes, doggy. I'm just so happy. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go inside now. Yeah, I'm going to go inside now.